さんこんにちは。構造コーヒーチャンネルの坂本です。この構造コーヒーチャンネルではコーヒー界のプロフェッショナルをお呼びしてその知識や技術、知見などを存分にお伺いしよう、そういうインタビュー番組です。では本日のゲストになります。先ほど行われた WBC のプサン、韓国での大会ですね。それで見事世界一に輝いたインドネシアのミカエル・ジャシンさんです。ミカエルさん、今日はありがとうございます。
Thank you for having me.
ミカエルさんにちょっとお伺いしたいことがありました。そういえば SCAJ で初めて日本に来たんですか？日本に来たことありますか？今まで。
Yes, my first time in Japan, and it's been great so far.
日本の日本そのものの感想もそうですし、あと SCAJ で結構いろんな活動されてたけど、どうですか？この3日間どうでした？
Well, I think for a lot of people who even haven't been to Japan, we are very familiar with Japanese culture, being from the food, the anime, and all of that. And especially with coffee, it's the artistry and the commitment to doing the best or brewing the best cup of coffee. So for me personally, it's been great to finally be here and actually see it with my own eyes, feel it with my own hands and my own tongue, my palate. And SCAJ was the same. It was really great. We had a really nice mix of both B2B and B2C customers.
結構ね、いろんなブースに立たれていろんなバリスタの方とかいろんなロースターの方と交流されたと思うんですけど、なんか印象に残ったコーヒーとか、印象に残ったコーヒーマンとかいらっしゃいましたか？
It's a lot of the people that helped me become who I am today, or the baristas that I look up to, a lot of them were Japanese. Previous world champions, World Barista Championships finalists, and it's great to not only see them in their home country, because I've met them for a while now, but also to drink the coffees from Japanese roasters and see it in their own backyard, right? Because all this time I could only buy the beans and then brew it myself, but then now I could actually come here, go to the roastery, have the beans brewed by them as well. 今日本のコーヒーカルチャーの話にちょっと触れていただいたんですけど、インドネシアのコーヒー業界はどうなんでしょう？ Yeah, in Indonesia, the industry is very interesting because we're both a producing country and a consuming country. The market is really big for that allows domestic consumption. Here in Japan, I'm sure you're familiar with Indonesian wet hull coffee. So that's the biggest volume, and that demand is now being taken domestically as well as overseas. So it's challenging in terms of maintaining the volume to have enough coffee for everyone. But also on the other end of the spectrum, the Barista Championships allow for more innovation at the farms as well. And this also trickles down to the specialty coffees that we have back home.
ブラジルとかになると基本的にはコーヒーの生豆って輸入できないんですよね。グリーンビーンっていうのは輸入できない。で、インドネシアは輸入できるんですか？他国のコーヒーは。
Yes, so it's one of the more, I think, interesting producing countries, because then, unlike a lot of other producing countries who really protect their domestic production, Indonesia has a more relaxed importing laws, not just for coffee, for rice, for a lot of the things that we consume ourselves. I think it's mainly because there's just a lot of us, so you need to import coffee or rice or other consumables just to cater for everyone. So having this relaxed law on import, especially with coffee beans, I think helps Indonesian farmers, baristas, and cafe goers or coffee lovers to experience what other coffee beans could taste like. Say, what are they doing in Colombia? What are they doing in Brazil? Things like that. And then try to mimic whatever they taste with Indonesian coffee. So I think it helps with the innovation and broadening their horizon and palate.
どうしても生産国のバリスタは自分の国のコーヒーを使わなければいけないってことに縛られるんじゃないかって僕は思ってたんですよね。で、今回使ってなかったと思うんですよ。だからその辺はなんかこう自分の気持ちの葛藤みたいなものはなかったですか？
Yeah, it's definitely a very important question, and it's a question that throughout my barista competition career, have dabbled in for quite some time, right? I've used Indonesian, I have used other coffees as well, so I've done the different spectrum. Throughout my career, competition career, I have experienced or dabbled with the feelings or the emotions of should I use it, should I not use it. And in my 3 WBC, I have used 30% Indonesian coffee, 100% Indonesian coffee, and 0% Indonesian coffee. So I've done all the different spectrums. So from the association, there is no pressure at all to use Indonesian coffee at WBC. When we compete in the regional scene, we have to use Indonesian coffee. And then national, we don't have to anymore. So we can just use whatever. And then for worlds, the association or the government never really forced it on us to use Indonesian coffee. But obviously, as a barista competitor who is from a producing country, I personally, and I know a lot of people share the same feeling with me, have this sense of responsibility to also represent us in the World Championship, both the beans and the baristas. And obviously, when the stage is as big as the World Barista Championship, it's a big platform that you can use to deliver a message. And for a while, at least for me personally, that message was to say that Indonesian coffee could be there, belong there, as competitive as the other coffees. And particularly in Milan, WBC Milan, we took 100% Indonesian coffee, and it was high enough. Like we got number 7, but it was still pretty far from being the winning beans. So for me personally, I had to go all out and represent Indonesian beans first before, well, thankfully I was given another chance in Busan before I could do and represent other things like Indonesian baristas, because we're both a producing and a consuming country, so we have, I would say, 2 different group of people to represent, the farmers and the baristas. And since Milan, Indonesia has now a Cup of Excellence competitions, so I felt like it's not my job anymore to represent Indonesian beans, because they already have their own competition platform where they are rewarded for excellence for beans. And then the barista competitions can be about baristas and not beans anymore.
ありがとうございます。なんで聞いたかというと、僕実は彼に2019年のボストンとあと2021年のミランと僕コーチとして行ってて、彼はインドネシア代表として来てて会ってるんですね、そのバックステージで。こう実はね、覚えてないと思うんだけどね、彼の練習してこいでコーヒー飲ましてもらったんですよ。で飲ましてもらって、そのワハナだと思うんだけど、多分インドネシアのワハナのコーヒーを使ってたんだけど、それがちょっと人生で飲んだインドネシアで一番美味しかったんですよね。びっくりするぐらい。だからいや絶対今回のプサンでもインドネシアを使うんだろうな、どっかのパートでって思ってて、全く使ってなかったんで、すごいびっくりしたっていう経験からちょっと今聞きました。
Yeah, well, definitely the coffees that I brought to the world stage and the coffees that are available to us competitors in Indonesia were good enough and competitive enough to be in the world stage. But to win a World Barista Championship, it's a combination of what's on trend and how big of a window that coffee has in terms of tasting really, really good. Meaning, sometimes you have an error, human error or machine error, and that extraction is not perfect. And with a not perfect extraction, how high of a score can you still get? And then I think our homework in terms of coffee beans in Indonesia is to broaden that window or that margin of error so that when things don't go well, that coffee can still taste as good as other coffees. And for Busan, my goal was to win. So I had to look for coffees that have a much wider margin of error. No matter what I did to it, no matter if there's an error, I could still score a 4 out of 6 in espresso. And unfortunately, in 2024, I couldn't find that Indonesian coffee that I felt comfortable bringing to the world. That's why I ended up with a Panamanian Geisha and a Colombian Ahi. So those were just the 2 coffees that I felt comfortable with. Not just Indonesian coffee who didn't make the cut. A lot of other coffees also didn't make the cut. But the 2 that I chose had that window.
ちょっとしつこいようなんですけど、ちょっとこのことについてもう一個聞きたいのは、ギリギリまでインドネシアのコーヒーが候補にあったとか、この辺りまで候補にあったっていうね、なんかその候補にはなかった、もうとりあえず勝つためにはもうないと、よし使わないんだってなったのか、なんかその辺ちょっとだけ最後に聞きたいんだけど。
Yeah, for Busan. So I had a very different goal with Busan. As a journey, my WBC Boston was my first time in the world, so I wanted to do the best that I could while hopefully talk about Indonesian coffee. So I did that and I got into the final, 4th place. So I had a little bit of a success, managed to have myself a small platform. And then for Milan, the second time I went, I wanted to use that platform to talk about Indonesian coffee. My willingness to talk about Indonesian coffee was bigger than my willingness to win. I only wanted to win if I use Indonesian coffee. And then the result was as it was, and I felt like I already did my part on talking about Indonesian coffee, but I still had that dream of becoming a world barista champion. So for Busan, the dilemma was still there, should I use Indonesian coffee or not? But I had that very clear cutoff point where I had to get at least a 4 in my espresso or a 4.5 or 5 in my milk beverage. So I had to sort of put my romantics aside and think more on a score sheet perspective, more objective perspective of what could hit that score. And basically chose coffee or whatever coffee that could hit that score consistently. And unfortunately, from the time that I had from December 2023 until May 2024, I couldn't get not only the Indonesian coffee that I wanted to bring, but some of the coffees that I really want to bring because of the story couldn't hit that score. So I didn't bring them. I chose to win first. And then now I can talk about those coffees as well because then my platform already grew bigger.
プロデューシングカントリーのね出身のバリスタってことで、僕らは日本ではほとんどコーヒー取れませんからちょっとイメージしにくいんだけど、バリスタとインドネシアの生産者の中でこう交流したり一緒にコーヒーを作ったり、そういうシーンって実際あるんですか、インドネシアに行くと。
Yeah, it's from different levels. So competitors, if you want to compete, you have to go through the regional stage, right? And you have to use Indonesian coffee. So a lot of this started in 2018, and since then, a lot of baristas are now forced to go to the farms and talk to the farmers because then what they want sometimes could be very specific. Oh, I want the coffee fermented this long or dried this long. And that really started the conversation between baristas and farmers. And then farmers started thinking more about quality as well, not just quantity, because then they can sell coffee for more expensive. More work, yes, but also for the same amount of kilogram, they can actually sell it for more. So definitely, even from the grassroots level, the conversation already started.
なるほど。ちょっとその辺の大会の話深掘りしたいんだけど、その前にちょっと構造コーヒーチャンネルを見てる視聴者のためにね、 ミカエルさんがどういう人かちょっと知らない視聴者が多いと思うので、まずどこでどんな活動をしている方で、なんでこのコーヒーのキャリアを進んでいったのかっていうちょっと自己紹介をね、ちょっと話が前後しちゃったんだけど、ちょっとお願いできますか。
Okay.
順番がね、すみません。